Gather around, Skull brothers and sisters. This is Skull World, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. You can follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook at Skull World. By the way, if you're subscribed, you like this video, and you leave a comment, you're entered to win. You're entered to possibly win a Justin Jefferson autographed jersey when I hit 3,000 subscribers. So do that. Tell me what you think of Nick Miller and his takes on this show today. We had a lot of breaking, not necessarily breaking news, but we had a video of Kirk Cousins dropping back on a tennis court, not playing tennis, going to football, and a couple other takes from some ESPN guy and a bunch of stuff. I want to ask you, Nick, where do you think we stand going in to the combine with Kirk Cousins and his future with the Minnesota Vikings? Take it away, Nick.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate you welcoming me back to the show. Had a lot of fun talking about the hypotheticals last week with you, and now we're here on the eve of the combine, starting, and everyone's starting to get in Indianapolis.
Dancer and Prancer and Vixen and Dixon or whatever.
Go ahead, man. Quessy and KOC and whatever. And it's just going to be such a fun time, and all the kind of speculation season that we're going through right now is, I think, some of the, besides for the games, that are the best time of the year. And so, yeah, obviously, the Kirk Cousins situation is the biggest thing that the Vikings have to tackle this offseason. And so I think, as we're getting to the combine, we're going to start hearing a lot more about, maybe, some of those national media types, whether it be, Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport or guy Tom Pelissero, are going to come back and give us some hopefully insight on where things stand currently with Kirk and the Vikings. But, I think that there's been some pretty good tea leaves over the course of the last few months about where, listening to both, Kirk Cousins addressing the media and, Quasi and KOC talking about, how they see the quarterback position, about maybe where things go from here. And so I think that going into this week, both sides do want to get a deal done. I think that, Kirk Cousins, wants to be here for the long term. I think that the Vikings do, value Kirk's leadership, and they value him as a quarterback and saw that down the stretch. Where I think the challenge lies are the long-term aspirations of both the team and the player. I think, Kirk is coming off the serious injury. He's going to be 36 at the start of the season. We saw a video today. It looks like he's progressing well, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But, he's looking for, how can I get that last, maybe last contract? It could be, go 3, potentially even 4 years to finish out my career and get that security on where I'm going to be. Because for the last few years, it seems like, especially since Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell came in, that we've been kind of in this year-to-year time frame. And so now Kirk's about to enter as a unrestricted free agent, and he's looking for his opportunity to secure, that maybe that one last bag and maybe a little bit of hometown discount. But more importantly, he wants, that guarantee, am I going to be the guy for your team, not only this year, but, the next 2 or 3 years overall. And where I think the Vikings stand is that there are, they want Kirk back. They definitely want him for next year. They think he's their best chance to compete. But I also think that they do want to draft that next quarterback. They're picking 11th, which is the highest they've picked in a long time. It's a quarterback, friendly draft with, potentially up to 6 guys being talked about in the first round. So they want to get their guy. And, where those issues mesh is that, the Vikings want, if, let's say, the guy comes in and he performs really well, they want to deal a contract with Kirk where they're not locked into, 2025, whether it be guarantees, or they want to be able to have the ability to potentially trade Kirk, and remove that no trade clause. And so where the sticking point is, in my opinion, is not, what the money is for 2024, their average annual value, or that. I think both sides are just looking for something a little bit different in their long-term aspirations.
Let me interject something there, Nick.
Yeah.
I hear that a lot. And there might be leaks out there and leaks out there. When you go into a car dealership and they tell you they come out with that first piece of paper and they say, this is what it is. Here's a pen, here, sign. Do you sign, Nick?
Oh, no, you got to haggle.
Right.
I'm a salesman in my professional life. So no,
right. So I'm coming in here with this idea. They're coming at me with this idea. Both of them are out there. I think it's the start of it. I think it's obviously negotiation. There is a middle ground or a desired outcome or um or a a level of risk they're willing to take. Um, it and this is just me interjecting a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
People are freaking out over 2 years guaranteed. Like that is something crazy outlandish that could never be done, and it's gonna strap us for the rest of our lives. That's a pretty short contract. And not unusual for a quarterback that's actually been a top 5 passer. I'm saying passer. I'm not saying top 5 quarterback. A lot to do with quarterbacks. I'm just saying top 5 passer because the stats say that. Um, that's not crazy to give a guy even at 36 2 years guaranteed for being playing at the level that he is. So I know it's came out that 1 year, and they're just not going to go beyond that. I'm It's the first step of a negotiation. Honestly, that's the way I'm taking. Where do you feel in that?
I don't think you're wrong. I'm not saying that a deal couldn't come in at 2 years. What I'm saying,
I'm just that's where I want to interject because that's where
well,
we're at on Twitter.
yeah, well, because like I said, here's where I think they stand. I think going into it, that's the current Vikings negotiating position, right? And Kirk wants to be seen as wants to be secured, and so that's why I think when Kirk talks about we'll start negotiations in March and they haven't come to a deal or something yet, is because they're both sides are holding firm to what they're looking for at this moment. Now, what's going to happen is starting this week, Kirk Cousins and his agent Mike McCarthy are going to go around and try to get feelers from other teams, and they're going to say, well, Vikings, we have the Atlanta Falcons over here who might be willing to offer us 2 years guaranteed. Is that something that you're willing to match? Or the Raiders are doing the same thing at this money amount. Are you willing to do it? And that's a risk the Vikings took, right? Because if they wanted to lock up Kirk Cousins, they could have potentially come to that middle ground, as you just outlined, before the combine started, when Kirk really has that, or his agent really has that opportunity to get those feelers when the whole NFL is together. But they didn't
Now,
do that.
a quick question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
We experienced Miami Dolphins losing a first round draft pick for tampering with Tom Brady, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If at this point, Kirk Cousins' agent tells Kwesi that Atlanta is looking to give us this right now, I would be the first. I would have a conversation recorded and sent to the league office.
Well,
immediately.
I'm being dramatic.
You know what I'm saying? Because that can't really happen until that legal tampering period legally, right?
No. So this is more of the conversation would be, Kwesi, or this is Mike telling Kwesi, hey, I've been reading these articles online. It's been kind of the talk of the combine. There's a really hot market for my guy. I really think that there's going to be teams out there that are willing to, give multiple years guaranteed. If you want your shot at Kirk, before that window opens up, here's what you got to do. And so it's not going to be, hey, Kwesi, the Falcons told me this. It's going to be, here's the talk of the town. Here's what I'm hearing. If you want to do it, you got to do it now. But it's going to be informed, right? It's not going to be, because Mike's going to be talking to other teams, other GMs, other agents, and saying, and he's going to hear these backroom conversations like, hey, I think the Falcons are really interested in your guy, whatever. And it's not going to be like a direct, this is this and whatever, but it's going to be, it's Mike McCartney is going to have a pretty good idea of what teams are interested, what Kirk's market might be. And he can use that try to use that as leverage. Like, you mentioned the ESPN article this morning about, 51 million or something per year for Kirk Cousins. Those are all the things that he's going to highlight and say, hey, here's why you need to lock up my guy now, because of that. And so it just, all this communication, all this talk is going to happen. And it really, what it comes down to is Mike McCartney is going to get this information. He's going to get this intel. He's going to, have these roundabout conversations with teams. And then he's going to go back to the Vikings and say, here's basically what I'm hearing, and here's what you got to do to match it. And it's got to be whether or not the Vikings are willing to meet that, or Mike McCartney is going to go around and talk to these teams, and he's going to find out that the market isn't as high there for Kirk Cousins as they thought, and that they're not willing to give all these, guarantees or something in the future. and then they come back to the Vikings and say, okay, well, let's we're willing to meet you a little bit more where you are, and how to do that. And in those scenarios, it really comes down to how flexible are each side willing to be in this negotiation, and how flexible are the Vikings willing to be to match whatever Kirk's market is or come close. Because I think Kirk would give a little bit of hometown discount, but overall, I don't think it's really about the amount of money per year as much as is Vikings willing to go to Kirk and say, hey, we're going to make sure that you're our starter not only this upcoming year, but in 2025 and future years too. And I think really that is the sticking point here. And it's not that the sides don't appreciate each other or aren't happy with that, but it's really about Kirk trying to do what's best for Kirk over the long term, and the Vikings trying to, Kwesi loves his flexibility. He wants to be able to, move on to, if they're targeting a rookie quarterback in this draft, if behind the scenes, if it's Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy, and they're going out and killing every practice, and they're progressing super quick, he doesn't want to be forced to keep the guy on the bench for another year because he locked into another fully guaranteed no trade clause year in 2025. He wants that maneuverability, and that's something that Kirk from his previous contracts hasn't given a lot of, is that he likes the structure. He likes, as he even talks about at the end of your press conference, it's not necessarily about the money, it's the structure. It's about what the money represents, the money being guarantees that he's.
Let me stop there. I know he came out and said that again, but he also said, I've said this before, but then he went on this time, added on to it, adding a little context, that he realizes where he's at and the ankle and stuff, and he talked about how that is not as important to him as it was when he was 28, because that's when he initially said it. Initially said it when he was 28 years old. Now he's 36. So I don't know. My question would be, out of all this information you just gave me, could you parcel out the part that is new information? Because we've talked about 2 years since last March, and the whole idea that, hey, we're not negotiating until March has actually been the common ground. Oh, where are you? I just lost you. There you are. Are you? Did you freeze on me? Did you hear everything I said?
Everything just froze on me, so I'm so sorry that I lost you.
Okay, so let me just ask you again. Sorry, technical difficulties in Minnesota. Apparently, they must have AT&T. Just stopping you for a second. Out of all the information, of all the things you just talked about, I'm going to ask you, what part of it that is new information? Because one thing, March has, and I go look back and I look in Google, every single negotiation he's signed has been in March. So this doesn't seem new, anything like, oh my gosh, they're starting March 4th or 5th. Oh my God, why'd they wait so long? That's just been when it's happened. The last 2 times he's negotiated contract, last year being March, we find out in June that they moved on from negotiations, didn't meet, and we're going to wait till again this March. So the March date's been talked about in June before the season started, right? So we're now about to get into March. So that doesn't seem like new information to me, right? And the Kirk Cousins wanting 2 years, that was reported last March. That is not new information for me. What is happening right now leading into camp that is new information? What of everything you just said is new, or do you have some stuff to add to that?
So I think when it comes to some of the recent reporting from some of the insiders about what's necessarily going on in the negotiation, they were discussing the fact that
you broke up a little bit.
Vikings
could you start over? You broke up a little bit. Could you start over?
The Vikings are discussing about the sticking point is guarantees. So that's been the recent reporting from Fowler and Albert Breer, is that the Vikings might be hesitant on giving the guaranteed money that Kirk Cousins has received in the past. So that's kind of the newer thing. And I think that
I think that was in March too, because the idea is I would give you a discount in 2 years, and the guarantee was the sticking point.
Yeah.
So I guess this is just maybe it is new information, but
well,
I felt like that I've been saying that since last June, that it looks like they didn't agree on the second year being guaranteed.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt that for the past year.
Yeah, I don't think this is necessarily new information, but I think leading up to it, when there's this public pressure to say, okay, where are things going on? And you're getting these leaks. And I really think what it's coming down to is Kirk wants to find out if other teams are willing to give him the structure and the guarantees that he wants, and if he can force the hand of Kwesi and the Vikings to meet him where they are. And if not, and another team is willing to go the extra mile that the Vikings aren't, that's where you start to lead to the potential of a divorce here. And so I think you're right in saying not much has changed. I just think that the fact that nothing has changed, from that stance, and them being on the opposite two sides of this thing for so long, for many months, leads me to believe that they're pretty entrenched so far, and that it's getting to the point where they're willing to let Kirk test the market and see what happens before they get back to it, and before they get back to the negotiating table. And so I think that's this week it's going to come to a head when they make the discussions, because if they're going to move on, the Vikings need to start making plans of finding who the other quarterback is going to be, if they want to trade up super early in the draft, whether it be with the Patriots or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of planning that goes involved with the Vikings if they're not going to have a new Kirk Cousins contract, what it means to the rest of the team, what it means for Justin Jefferson, what it means for Danielle Hunter. And so, I think that both sides would like to figure this out soon, over the next week or so as they meet in Indianapolis. Is this actually going to happen, or are we actually going to split? Of course, they could come back last minute on, March 11th, March 12th, before the contract voids and all the dead money accelerates, and decide to get something done. But I think both sides are just waiting for Kirk to figure out what his market is. And then, that market might dictate what the Vikings and Kirk are willing to do together.
One of the things I just recently did was I put out a poll, because I was like, today I said today Twitter sucks, because I both found out that Justin Jefferson is getting shopped, and the Vikings want to re-sign Kirk Cousins. So I asked it, do you believe anything you see in the media? And first answer was hell no, and the second was 5 sheep emojis. 89% said hell no, they don't believe anything they're reading, and I feel sorry for the 11% of the sheep out there. But one of the things recently was also I'm just using this as an example. The Vikings have told Justin Jefferson they're hesitant to give anybody outside of the quarterback over 1 year guaranteed. That is about the biggest BS I've probably seen on the internet, that the Vikings wouldn't give Justin Jefferson more than 1 year guaranteed contract. So that's where I'm at when I see stuff on the internet about reporting, because it's coming from a news source. I mean, it's not coming from, one of the things I find a lot, especially in Minnesota media, that I've been out of Minnesota since '98. So out of Minnesota, it seems like all these beat reporters and Pioneer Press and Star Tribune use each other as sources.
Yeah.
And then the Twitter aggregators share that information, and drives people to their news articles. So it is really tough. And I want to look at like a Pelissero. I want to look at, now even Pelissero was talking about how he's going to Atlanta today. It's like, how much of any of this am I supposed to believe, right? Because I have a friend that's an insider, and he gets fed information from agents, and he reports it, and that way he actually has access. And how much is that? You know what I'm saying? So, what are your feelings on it? I know we just talked about what we've seen and everything like that. What do you feel, personally about it? I love opinions, so go ahead.
About the just media.
Where we're at, like your opinion of this. I just gave you mine, so I want to hear yours.
Well, I think it's speculation season, right? And you got to feed the beast. And so I think that a lot of things are coming out. And so the way when I kind of view the media landscape is there are certain people that I try to lean on and I trust a little bit more with their reporting because, I look for trends, who is right most over time. I think Darren Wolfson it tends to be a little bit more right over time. So I trust his thing.
He's conservative. He doesn't put out bullshit, I don't think.
No,
I think he's very conservative. Like, for instance, that Charlie Walters thing.
Yeah, that was aggressive. Right.
And he's the guy that said that Kirk wants $90 million, right? And then nobody can find the link to where his article was, or someone shares it to me and it's behind a paywall. So I'm not gonna. And you probably saw a tweet of mine. I'm like, hey, can someone tell me why Charlie Walters hasn't tweeted in 2 years? Well, I mean, is there a reason why he hasn't tweeted in 2 years? And why are these people tagging him on an account that's dead? So can someone tag me on the article or share the article in a image or something, because I can't find it.
Yeah, I would also say I tend to trust information if it comes from multiple sources. So I think you were just kind of talking about the Florio from PFT Jefferson report. I haven't really seen anyone else talk about that. He's the only one that's pushing that kind of viewpoint. Whereas
I recently had a show when we talked about Florio putting out his conjecture. Right. This is the way I feel, and then he makes it sound like it's actually insider information.
Right. Yeah. He's been like that for 20 some years, which is good for NFL media because it's entertaining. But when it comes to a news source, I don't necessarily think that I rely on Florio. Whereas kind of like when it comes to the inside thing about the guarantee structure with Kirk, like if it comes from one person, like Albert Breer said it, kind of matter of factly, okay, Albert Breer's, an insider, he's got national, credibility. And then also when Fowler, comes back and he's a former Vikings beat reporter and he's kind of like ESPN's main, inside guy with, Dan Graziano. Okay. Now you have ESPN saying it and you have, Monday Morning Quarterback, saying the same thing. So you got
what was the Breer report again? I talked about it, but I can't remember what it was about.
So essentially, they say that this administration with Kwesi is different in the fact that they're not willing to give a fully guaranteed contract to Kirk moving forward. And so then Fowler came back on Sunday and said that the Vikings and Kirk are interested in doing a deal, but guarantees might be the sticking point. Was the language that he used.
And this was before we knew the cap increase, right? It was before.
Yeah, so last week was before, and then so Fowler was after because he was Sunday morning. I think the cap increase happened on Friday.
Oh, Fowler, but Breer was earlier though, wasn't it?
Breer was Tuesday, and then Fowler was Sunday. The cap thing happened on Friday.
So was Fowler, and just asking because I didn't catch Fowler's. Fowler was reiterating what Breer said on Tuesday, or was this new information?
This is separate reporting from Albert Breer. He was saying that he thought that they wanted to get a deal done. There was interest from both sides, but right now in the negotiations, the guarantees are the sticking point, but that they'll try to continue conversations this week was essentially the report.
Yeah. So, this is the whole idea about if March 12th comes, 28 million hits. Well, obviously you can just give him a signing bonus, make it 20 million, make the cap hit 48, and then peanut butter spread the rest, or make it 38 and peanut butter spread. Make it 29, make it $1 million extra, and then peanut butter spread. I had thought earlier that, that wouldn't, that would be it. We'd hit the 28 million, it's done. But then I'm like, you know what? It could go past free agency. People keep talking about him finding out what his market is. He has to go to the market first, right? So, and more people are talking about how he and another quarterback, I can't think of who else, are the two guys. Obviously, Kirk Cousins is the number one QB free agent.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield, yeah. So Baker Mayfield and him are the two guys that are going to be the first dominoes. and are they going to be available? After when free agency starts. So that's where none of those other quarterbacks will get signed until these two guys get signed, most likely. So I think that's where we're at now. Now talking about the draft, I saw your pin tweet. It's a playoff of draft day.
Yeah.
JJ McCarthy, no matter what.
Yeah.
But you also, I talked about this earlier. You also said, I think off of Purple Daily, Phil Mackey, totally love him. No, I have a little. Anyways, so Phil Mackey tweets. I watch the show. I can appreciate somebody's game. So I think PFF put out that 2 years. What was it? 70 million. So 2 years, 35 million a year. I think it'd take more. I think it would take a pay raise, because 35 million a year is not a pay raise. So I would think 37 would be like the bottom for me personally. But PFS says 2 years, 35. He says, well, it wouldn't make sense. You need to go full Rams then, and not draft a quarterback. I honestly think that he has a base of people, and I think that kind of would feed his base and get them riled up, because they want to, no matter what, draft a quarterback. The same way you said in your tweet, JJ McCarthy, don't pass him up, basically. But you kind of reiterated the same thing when you quote tweeted that. Where do you stand with that? Because let me tell you where I stand on drafting a quarterback.
Yep.
And I think the point was that 2 years would be guaranteed, and then a third year would be some dead money cap hit. And you've wasted 3 years of a rookie contract. And then he would only get a benefit of a really low contract for the fourth year. Me personally, and I just put out a short today that if we're drafting a quarterback and only think the value for that quarterback is in the first 3 years or 4 years of his contract, then we're drafting the wrong quarterback. Patrick Mahomes has won 2 Super Bowls outside of his rookie contract. So, and he's the only quarterback in the last 10 years to win a Super Bowl in his contract. I don't think having a rookie contract is the best way to win a Super Bowl, because that hasn't happened except for once in the last 10 years. I think there's multiple ways to do that. And I have no problem drafting a JJ McCarthy at 11. And this is the hypothetical, if we re-sign Kirk, I have no problem getting our guy for the future. And the reason being is we didn't need a running back when we got Adrian Peterson. We had a 1,200-yard runner the year before. We didn't need Randy Moss because we had Jake Reed and Chris Carter. We didn't need Darisaw because we had O'Neal, and in Cleveland we're supposed to be our left and right tackles. We didn't need Darisaw. We went and got what we felt was like the best guy, and adding to a strength of a team is a strategy. So I feel like a quarterback, whether he's 2, 3, 4 years down the road, we know a couple quarterbacks got hurt and a Tom Brady came about. We know that Patrick Mahomes didn't start till year 2. We know some of these quarterbacks, hell, fucking young, for San Francisco's in the Hall of Fame. That guy didn't start until he was 30. So, or 29, 30 years old. So I'm drafting a quarterback still. Tell me what you think, because I want you to clear that up for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so JJ McCarthy, no matter what, it's definitely a spoof off of draft day. And I think I did right on draft day last year. I did Anthony Richardson, no matter what. So just a fun thing. I like
keeping it going. I was a big Anthony Richardson guy too. There's 2 guys. There's Anthony Richardson was the only guy I was willing to go up and obviously CJ Stroud, but I was not a Bryce Young guy. I was Anthony Richardson or Stroud were my 2 quarterbacks in the draft. Otherwise, I was very iffy on all of them. This year is Jaden Daniels and JJ McCarthy for me.
Well, we think alike on that front. But yeah, to answer your question, so I did something earlier in the offseason, right around the playoffs, where I looked back at the last 11 years of quarterbacks that have been in the Super Bowl. And so there's been 22 quarterbacks during that time frame. And here's the breakdown of those. You have 10 guys who've made the Super Bowl, which I would put in what I call the GOAT category. And so that was Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Patrick Mahomes. I think we all can agree that those guys are like all-time great talents, So I just nicknamed it the GOAT.
I mean, I saw the tweet by Phil Mackey, and he broke it down as
So and then when you look at that, and then so there was the 10 GOAT quarterbacks, 8 rookie scale quarterbacks, and then there were 4 outliers that were veteran quarterbacks that weren't necessarily GOAT level quarterbacks, and they were Matt Ryan, Cam Newton, Matt Stafford. Were all former first overall picks, and then the year Cam Newton and Matt Ryan were both MVPs that year. And then Matt Stafford is when you talk about going full Rams, they made all those trades, and then the other one outlier was Jimmy Garoppolo. So really, when you break it down, unless you have the number 1 overall pick level talent quarterback, you have a GOAT, you have a rookie scale contract guy, or that one outlier, Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's 1 out of 22 times, and what you can hit with a guy that's not GOAT level or not rookie scale or not number 1 overall pick value. And so you look on it, that's putting heavy expectations on JJ McCarthy or Jaden Daniels, when they get into their veteran contract status 4 or 5 years ago, or 4 or 5, 5-6 years from now, to carry the load and go that. I mean, if they're a GOAT level guy, or if they're MVP year, that's great. But how many quarterbacks are actually get to that level? And so when you're all thinking about it, it's like, what are the probabilities here? What are the possibilities? What's the most likely thing that can get you there? It's either getting that GOAT guy, which is almost nearly impossible to do. If we do it, then amazing, then we're set. Or is it trying to go all in on the rookie scale contract and giving yourselves as many opportunities during those years in order to try to make a Super Bowl and hopefully develops into that GOAT or that MVP level quarterback? But if he's not, those rookie scale years you want to take advantage of, because there's such a high chance, the 8 out of the 22 on the rookie scale, in which you can actually make the Super Bowl from that time frame. And so when it comes to that, why would you want to give up those high probability years of being able to build around that rookie scale contract and take away those opportunities to get to the Super Bowl from a proven format that shows that it works? And so that's the question. Is, you're not wrong in saying, hey, when we draft a guy, we want to draft a guy for the next 10 or 15 years. That's 100% the best mentality. And we want him to be the next Patrick Mahomes, we want to be the next MVP level. But you also have to consider, what are the chances that he gets to that level? And then is it more realistic to try to say, how can we build the best team possible around this rookie scale contract and that be our path to the Super Bowl? And we talk about eliminating 75% of those years, on that rookie scale contract, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. And so that it all comes down to probabilities and possibilities and what's worked in the past and what's the best trend to get you there. Now that won't always stay the same way, but ever since the new CBA in 2011, when they added those rookie scale contracts where the first overall pick, wasn't making, this massive contract, and it's really cost controlled, you get a lot of surplus value over paying, CJ Stroud's making $8 million a year versus when you're talking about Kirk Cousins making, $37 million per year, as you just proposed. That's, $29 million that can be spent on, 5 or 6 really good, solid players, to add value to their team. And then you have to ask yourself, what's the difference between, Kirk Cousins' level of play versus CJ Stroud? Now, I still think Kirk Cousins is probably a better quarterback than CJ Stroud, but is he, 5 or 6 good, solid players better than, CJ Stroud? That's where you have to question. You have to ask yourself the question. So being able to take advantage of that guy on the rookie scale contract is such a huge advantage that I just don't think someone like Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, who really thinks about those probabilities and understands, he's the economics guy, he's going to understand, getting that surplus value and being able to add to the rest of the roster really gives you, that chance to do something special and make the Super Bowl.
So, one of the things that I keep in mind, and I never talked about that or shared that post that had the same information you just gave, because I always have this picture in my head of Bill Gates sitting on behind his desk. He's a very, very famous photo of him, and he had a stack of books there, and one of them says "Lying with Statistics." It is one of Bill Gates's books that he has sitting out there so the camera can see it. So having an MBA and taking statistics. The only reason I'm not getting my PhD is because it's hard as shit, and I got a B in statistics, and I know I'm not going to be able to get through a PhD if I have to take statistics. And one of the things I'm working in the education field for a while, is I did work with some people that had PhDs, and one of the things is they would have to defend their dissertation. One of the things you brought up is that you had to be a GOAT or you had to be a rookie, and here's like 5 or 6 guys that are pretty darn good or an MVP seasons. I would argue that Kirk was on his way to an MVP season potentially when he got hurt. So I would throw that into a extenuating circumstances or added context that potentially could have happened. A Stafford, and you talk about a Matt Ryan, things like that. One of the other aspects in there, it's not mentioned in that thing, is that 10 of those Super Bowls was played and 7 of them won by a guy that was drafted in the 6th round. He is a GOAT now, but he wasn't expected to be a GOAT when he got drafted in the 6th round. And the GOATs mentioned also are paired with Hall of Fame quarterbacks or Hall of Fame coaches. So I think we don't know what Kevin O'Connell is going to be. We don't know that yet. But to come in your first year and win 13 games with the worst defense I've seen in my lifetime, one worse than the year before, I feel like there's a lot of things that take from that, and that's why I don't comment on that. I never commented on that tweet or shared it or talked about it. Is because that, I mean, you're talking about a guy that got drafted in the 6th round, and he ate up 10 spots in the Super Bowl that the other AFC quarterbacks couldn't get in. So I want to look back at who are those AFC quarterbacks that got beat out by the GOAT. I mean, getting the NFC title game, you got Casey Keenum in the NFC title game. You got, and then go back years, you're talking about Brad Johnson winning the Super Bowl. He's a pretty good quarterback. I list him as probably maybe top 6 in my top 6. Him and Rich Gannon. I'm like, those two guys are like, those were pretty good quarterbacks for us. Rich Gannon went to 2 Super Bowls. So I'm like, but those are in the years past, and this is more recent date, and it has been eaten up by a dynasty. So it's really hard when a sample size is ate up, 10 of those years ate up by one guy with a Hall of Fame known as the GOAT head coach. I'm not gonna take that as the rule. I'm not gonna take that as a rule, because if 20, what would it be? About 40% of the quarterbacks in those years, you have to draft a 6th round quarterback, and he has to become the GOAT and pair it up with a guy who's failed at 2 other jobs. So I'm like, I could throw that shit to the wind all day long. So I get where everybody's coming from with that. I get it. It's statistical. I could, if I was doing my dissertation, I would have 10 people out in front of me going, what about this? What about this? What about this? Oh, Tom Brady was 10 of those. And who was the quarterback behind him? That's the way I'm thinking when I saw that. But it's not, because I will look at it and I can instantly, I guess I'm inquisitive, and I see and it's coming from a guy that has an agenda. And I want to, and my first thing is, yeah, Tom Brady's the GOAT, but he was a 6th round pick. So 40% of your 40% of your quarterbacks in the Super Bowl got to be drafted in the 6th round. That's the rule. Got to draft as a 6th round quarterback. But you know what I'm saying. You get where I'm coming from. I know.
It's a very small sample size, but we basically, I mean, what we're coming down to is 2011 was such a massive shift in the way that roster construction takes place because of the rookie scale contract at that point, where you have that cost control for multiple years. And so we don't really have any other choice but to go back to basically, so 2011 is instituted in the summer. So 2012 was the first draft that, it actually took place. And so that's what we're basing, that data off of. But I completely understand what you're saying. I mean, but the other thing,
the old thing was you can't have a quarterback taking up 13.5% of your salary. Well, and then the Rams, although Stafford was below 13.5, they had over 60 million in dead or a cap hit to the quarterback position. So
Yeah,
I'm like,
well,
but then someone beat the 13.5, and now it's gone on to you need to be a rookie scale contract to win. And I'm like, or the GOAT. Those are the only two ways you can really those are your best chances to win the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of there's a moving goalpost every single week.
oh, for sure. I mean, what I will say is point out is in which I think Phil Mackey put in that tweet is Matt with the Rams, the Matt Stafford, while they did break that threshold, they went on and they traded. They traded for Jalen Ramsey. They traded for Von Miller. They traded a bunch of future first round picks. I mean, they were all in that season, in order to win. And that's what he's saying is if the Vikings want to do that, then maybe Kirk Cousins gets them over the edge. If you go all in to build a talent, around him, like if you get a Jalen Ramsey type shutdown corner on an island on your defense, how much would that do for Brian Flores in the defense to make it better? Like they could do that, And then Patrick Mahomes, obviously he broke that threshold, but then again, he's Patrick Mahomes, and so the rules don't necessarily apply to him. I mean, if Kirk, I don't think I know that you're a big fan of Kirk Cousins, and I think highly of Kirk Cousins too. But
I support Minnesota Vikings, and he's a quarterback, and he's a very good quarterback.
Yeah, but he's not. I don't think that anyone's saying that he's Patrick Mahomes level, talented. And so, if he was, instead of the, maybe 10th best quarterback in the league, if he was the number 1 quarterback in the league, maybe the Vikings could break that rule, because Patrick Mahomes, they traded away Tyreek Hill instead of paying him. And they, won with a bunch of basically scrubs at wide receivers because Patrick Mahomes is just that good. And I just don't know that, if the Vikings did the same thing, that Kirk could carry the team in the same way. We all know that Kirk Cousins needs pieces around him to be successful. He needs a better defense than what the Vikings have given him over the last 6 years. That's not his fault. But I'm just saying is that they're, certain level of quarterbacks have certain abilities to get past certain deficiencies on their team. And we know that Kirk Cousins is a very good quarterback, but he needs more assistance than, Patrick Mahomes does to get the same, level of wins out of it. And so I agree with you that it's a small sample size and the goalpost.
And I would agree. I could agree with that, but he does have better weapons around him if you look at it. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. And this has said a lot. And I don't know if you've ever said it, but I hear this a lot. Kirk Cousins needs everything perfect. You've heard that, right?
Yeah,
needs everything perfect around him. There was nothing perfect around him in 2022. There was nothing perfect around him. One of the worst offensive lines. I think offensive line coaching. I think we added different coaches to that, and that had a lot to do with it. He had the 31st ranked defense. If anything, that was a testament to the fact that Kirk Cousins can raise the level of play of the people around him. Because he was the most.
We did win 13 games, so we did get knocked out
in a rookie head coach.
Yeah, and we did get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, though. And if you do look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes has never not made the AFC Championship game, whereas we've only won one playoff game in 6 years.
Oh, I'm not comparing him to Mahomes.
Yeah, I'm just.
But I don't remember Kansas City's defense being 31st ranked. They were pretty. It looked like they had pretty good freaking defense to me. I don't know about that, but this year we had like a 13th in scoring defense, and it kind of fell to the wayside the last 3 games of the year. I had someone say today we didn't have a playoff defense, like meaning we wouldn't made the playoffs with this defense. I'm like, well, we were 13th, and we made the playoffs the year before with the 31st. And yeah, we lost in that. We lost in that playoff game, and we haven't had a defense ranked over 25th, I think, since 2019. And that year we actually advanced and went to the second round. So give me a defense as good as that, and see where we better weapons, because we didn't have Justin Jefferson in 2019. We didn't have TJ Hawkinson in 2019. We didn't have Darrisaw in 2019. Give me that level of defense matched with this offense, and I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say to that is, we don't know when TJ Hawkinson's coming back. He might be gone first, 6 weeks of the season's on PUP because of his knee injury, and we still don't know what Kirk Cousins, we could talk about the video in a second, but still don't know, how much that injury is going to affect him and, his ability to throw the ball on his plant foot. And, if that's going to take something off, and he's turning 36 as well. And so I agree. I mean, Kirk Cousins was playing probably the best football of his career to start the last season, but that's pre-injury and pre another year, of age on him while he's 36. And, we talked a little bit about Matt Ryan earlier. I mean, that's kind of where Matt Ryan fell off a cliff too. And he was #1 overall pick and, former MVP guy. And I'm not saying Kirk can't, have longevity past that, but I'm just saying is that it's kind of risky to look into and saying, are we even going to get the same Kirk Cousins? And this kind of also goes back to the point about, going all in. So, you just said, we need a better defense. We need the defense to, improve.
I think we got a nice little group of guys that we can add pieces to, and we got 2 off seasons, 9 picks this year. We signed the #1 edge rusher last year, even though it was Davenport. He was the #1 edge rusher. There was a defensive end, but he was an edge rusher. That's where he was listed, #1. And cornerback was like 5th. Murphy was like the 5th rated quarterback, and he was a top 50 or 45, free agent. So we were able to add those 2 pieces with Kirk Cousins, 35 million. But it was 20 million cap hit. But we had -20 going into the free agency. Now we have 37.9, and nobody likes to talk about this because I don't know. In a lot of cases, it doesn't fit their narrative too much. Is that, and I put that out in the tweet. Wait till they find out that we can get 15 million if we post June 1st cut Harrison Smith. Now we have what, 52 million dollars. So we are in a better situation because this is one of the things we can never put a team around Kirk. We never put anything in the offensive line. Every offensive lineman, including Dalton Reisner, including Cleveland, were 1st and 2nd round picks. So we put resources that offensive line. We, Justin Jefferson, we traded for TJ Hawkinson. We've put players around, and we've never had this much cap room. You know what I'm saying? So it's a risk. Obviously, he's 36. He's got an Achilles, and I know the video today is him dropping back. And I think you pointed out that this was bad for Viking fans that want Kirk Cousins. I think this was just normal. You know what I'm saying? This was expected. We knew this was going to happen. They even talked about it he said, I want to get my workouts on tape a month ago, 2 months ago. So we knew this was going to happen. So this was not breaking news to me that this was happening. It's just news because it finally happened. You know what I'm saying? So seeing him healthy and moving around, I think everybody was really intrigued when he did the spin at the awards ceremony.
Right.
We're like, oh my God, look at, he can do that. And he's putting out videos playing with his kids and all that stuff. So all that's part of him marketing himself, obviously, because he's going to be a free agent. This was just normal and expected to me.
I think it was normally expected, but I think that the kind of idea is that if, let's say that we had in that same Albert Breer report that we talked about earlier, it was expected that they had talked before, Darren Doogie-Wolfson said, that Kirk Cousins and, Mike McCartney had, touch base, within the last week before the combine. I think if the Vikings were really close on, potentially getting a deal done with Kirk Cousins, that would be an indication that, that maybe Kirk would be a little bit more quiet, right? But the video coming out today on the eve of the combine is just talks about with all the backroom negotiations coming on. I mean, he's sending out the bat signal to GMs and teams that, hey, I'm progressing well in my contract, come and get me, or make me offers, or like I'm open for business. And so with, you talked about the increase in cap space, that means that then more money is available to other teams to potentially get in the bidding war, with Kirk Cousins and, make him an offer or bid up that market. And so every single time that market gets more competitive, it makes it harder for, the Vikings and, Kirk to come to an agreement because, if we take my premise that, the reporting from Fowler and Breer that, guarantees are the sticking point, if more teams have more money and they're willing to go further in guarantees in years than the Vikings are, I think that just increases the chances that they separate. Once again, they could, compromise, and the Vikings can move a little bit, and Kirk could take a little bit less to stay with the Vikings. But more competition just makes it harder for Kirk to stay with Minnesota.
Yeah, obviously, right? Everybody's got more money now, so we actually have a better. I think a team with less money available, it helped them more. You know what I'm saying? It helped them much more than it helps a team that already has, like freaking Bears or whatever, $80 million. It helps a team with less more to me because it's a bigger percentage. And then we got a couple other guys that can move around. But for me, the whole time I'm thinking Kirk is not going to start negotiating until he shows he's passed a threshold in his workouts, in his recovery. Because why would you you're not going to go negotiate a contract with a cast on. You're not going to do that, right? You're not going to go negotiate with a walking boot on. You're not going to go negotiate while you're limping around. But now that I have put out a video of me running around a tennis court, I'm ready to talk. It's just that it was perfect timing to where he's in a stage where he can do aggressive dropbacks. Because he was talking about that before. I'm doing dropbacks, they're just not aggressive yet. Boom, today they're aggressive now. So I think for that, it's sending a message sure to the league, but it's also sending a message showing the Vikings that, hey, I am healthy. I don't know that tennis court. I don't think tennis courts are at the whatever TCO performance, whatever. I don't think do they got tennis courts there? I don't know. So what's that?
I said probably not.
Okay, so he's not probably working out at the Vikings. He's working out somewhere else, it looks like. So, one of the things someone told me, he's in the facilities every day. They know what he is. You know what he's doing. Well, he's fucking practicing in tennis courts. You don't know. I don't know. You don't know. Come on. So those are the kind of conversations I sometimes get into with people. But yeah, for me, it was like, I was expecting all of this. This seemed like it was the game plan, because he's been very open about it, and the Vikings have been open about wanting him back, and other players have came out and said they wanted him back, and it's an obvious thing because they've never not said they didn't want him back. And then I get, what else are you supposed to say? Well, not that they want him back, that, hey, we're going to wait till see where he is, and they could say anything. But honestly, it feels like that this is where and this is where it is. And because it happened, well, now we got to talk about it. It didn't move the needle. I tweeted, cool, great. And I tweeted it out. You had a different thing. You said, hey, go get that bag, basically.
Yeah. Well,
congrats. Go get that bag.
Right. I think, and when you take the player's perspective, every single player, and me as a fan, I want all individual players to make as much money for their families as possible. Like I see that, like, they only get a short career. Like, of course, Josh Metellus, of course, Jordan Addison, of course, Justin Jefferson. They're like, all right, Kirk, go get that bag, go get that money. Like, because that's what they want too. They want that for their individual careers. And so every player should go get as much money as possible. Right. But Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson aren't, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah responsible for, or Rob Brzezinski responsibility for the Vikings cap health and their situation and building a Super Bowl roster. Like, and Kirk's their friend, and they want him to go get paid. They want him to do that. They don't have that responsibility, right? It'd be very weird if Josh Metellus, started talking about another player and saying, hey, I don't know if the Vikings should resign him because, about the big picture cap space, or because we want a rookie quarterback. I mean, they're just never going to say that. That's not in their mind. And so, I'm not in the thing of saying that what they're saying isn't valid. I think that Josh Metellus, Alexander Mattison, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, I do think they love Kirk. They want him back, but ultimately they're not paid to be the Vikings GM, so they have a different perspective on it, and they don't have to negotiate it with Mike McCartney like Kwesi does. And so it's just a different lens of what their their goals are and what their mission are. And yeah, I mean, when Kirk put out that video today, I mean, I think that this is expectation for timeline, but you'd have to think him and Mike McCartney had a goal set in mind that's saying, hey, before the combine starts, we want to release this video so everyone can see the progress and how I'm doing. I mean, that's probably been in the works for a matter of weeks, of saying that, this is our goal, for this day, to make sure that we have something out there in the video, because, right, like, some teams aren't going to come negotiating. They're not going to be calculating us into their possible plans if they don't know that we're healthy and moving it along. And so I think it's very much a calculated thing over the last few weeks, and is part of the process for negotiation. And, Kirk, we know, is a, Hall of Fame businessman, and Mike McCartney is one of the best agents in the business for, securing good deals for Kirk. And so, I think that this is all planned and all part of their process to try to get the best deal for what Kirk wants, which is, the structures and all that. And, I think you're right, maybe that the Vikings don't know every single thing about what's going on with Kirk, but I think that they've communicated. They have a pretty good sense. I mean, Kirk has been in the building to some points. They have seen, the progress he's made. You've heard the players kind of talk about seeing him in the facility too. I mean, they're not oblivious to where Kirk is, right now. And so I don't think that video, like I said, was as much for the Vikings as it was for other teams who maybe haven't seen Kirk, other than the award show. It's probably very helpful for, Terry Fontenot of the Falcons to see, okay, Kirk is dropping back at this point. Let me go talk to my team doctors. So, based on this timeline and how Kirk's progressing, is he going to be ready for, OTAs? Is he going to be ready for training camp? Can, if I put an offer in him 2 weeks from now, how good do we feel that he can be our, quarterback week one? And so, all that information I think is very helpful to the negotiation process. And I want Kirk to be successful. I want him to get whatever deal is best for him. I just, when it comes down to it, I'm a Vikings fan first. And so, I want the Vikings to do what they think is best for them first. And if it happens that there's this compromise, then great. But I really think that both sides are very motivated in opposite directions right now.
Yeah. So history would show us, Kirk took $6 million less to come here for the Vikings, right? He actually did a short little docu-series on him sitting in his mother-in-law's basement in Atlanta or wherever. And he has mentioned a couple of times that his contract was based off of Matt Ryan. It says his agent come to him, hey, Matt Ryan signed a 150 million 5-year contract, 100 guaranteed, which was 3.5. Which was 100 guaranteed, which worked out to be about 3.5 years of guaranteed money. And Kirk signed a 3-year guaranteed contract, and that was the big news. The first fully guaranteed contract. It was based off of what Matt Ryan got the same year of 100 million. Well, 100 minus 86 means Matt Ryan got $14 million more and got an extra half-year guaranteed money that Kirk didn't get. So we didn't have a fourth year on Kirk Cousins. So the idea that nobody had ever gotten a 3-year contract fully guaranteed before, yeah, no one's ever signed a fully guaranteed 3-year contract, but they've signed 3 years fully guaranteed before. So he's taken less that year. He took, the reports came out in the same like this year. Somebody's saying he's going to worth 51. Well, when he was getting ready to sign his extension, people were talking about, hey, his value, and I saw as high as 45 million. He signed for 35 million. So he's taken what expected was be 2 years less. I remember seeing Phil Mackey talk about it, almost disappointed that he signed that it was 35 million and not higher, so they couldn't complain about it. That's how great of a extension that was. 35 million 1 year. And I had a guy saying Kirk and this fully guaranteed, and I said, you're complaining about a fully guaranteed 1-year contract? Would you want more years? I don't know. Anyway, so now he's actually came out and talked about how winning was a little more important than what the contract, what the money means. He did a press conference on that. For me, I can go back and look and probably find videos in reports, even though I can't tell you exactly where I saw it. I had heard it from his mouth and saw him. Saw articles about him talking about this point in making sure he was able to show that he was healthy. And I know, and obviously I'm not naive to think that he needs to show everybody he's healthy. Just like I car referencing before. I am not negotiating, I am negotiating with you and 4 other car dealerships down the road at the same time. It's obviously it's water is wet news, right? There is a market for Kirk Cousins. We know that. Where are you? I lose you? There you are. So it's what I expected all along. It doesn't move the needle for me as much. Sorry, everybody. This is a second problem. Let's see if we can get him back. Yeah, sorry about that. So I talked ad nauseum about that. But one thing before we go, I went back and looked back at Kwesi's interview about his 3-year plan, and him being asked about what it would be, what it's like to have to his his competitive rebuild, and they're asking questions about that, and he brought up the fact that, hey, I could tell you the statistical about breaking it down and how much easier that would be. And honestly, I don't know what Super Bowl teams lately broke it all down. I don't know. I don't see that. But the competitive rebuild part of it and having a 3-year deal, and he's turned over this roster almost 80%. Probably higher, and probably more this year since he took over. So he has rebuilt. I think what people want is, or not to run it back, is mean they don't want Kirk back. Like, that's running it back to them, is bringing back the same quarterback, because it's not Jefferson coming back, it's not Darisaw coming back, it's not O'Neal coming back. They're fine with that. So it's get rid of the quarterback and bring a new one, and that would make it not running it back to them, because you really have turned over the roster. So Kwesi came in, and he got the job because this was the plan, and this was either his plan or he was okay with this plan. And we're in the 3rd year and he said it, a 3rd year of a 3-year plan. I don't think that 3-year plan was to go into that 3rd year with a bridge quarterback. I just don't feel like that would be the plan. So 2 things got to happen to me, and I want to get your viewpoint, and then we'll go. He's either got to re-sign Kirk, or he's got to go up and get the guy and start him right now. Those would be the 3-year of a 3rd-year plan. Donald or any other bridge quarterback coming in here would not be my 3rd year of my 3-year plan that got me hired. That's what getting me fired. That's what I'm saying. Don't you feel that way? If this is the 3-year, this was his plan. You're giving up you're changing course 3 years in to your 3-year plan. What do you think about that?
I think it is to get to secure the starting quarterback. I think last year, you and I both, we talked about earlier about Anthony Richardson being, their target, and that they wanted to trade up for. I think ideally they would have,
I also heard it was the other guy, right?
Yeah.
And I also heard it was, what's his name from Kentucky?
Will Levis.
Will Levis. So I heard it was that guy's, but yeah, I kind of tend to believe it was Anthony Richardson.
So in their mind, I think what they wanted to do is they wanted to trade up for or get a quarterback last year that they believed in, have him sit behind Kirk in Kirk's last year of his deal. Because once again, they just moved the money last year. They didn't extend him. When all those negotiations happened, they wanted a guy to sit behind Kirk, and then they were going to start the rookie quarterback Anthony Richardson, this year, and let Kirk walk in free agency. And so now what I think they want to do is go get the quarterback, and they want to have Kirk come from, stay for 1 more year, have him sit behind Kirk, and then start the guy next year, as we talked about before. I just think that that's not, what Kirk necessarily wants to do, because he still wants to be the guy somewhere, because he's, still a damn good quarterback. And so, when I think that they were planning on, right around this time is when they were going to transition to, the next young guy. And so I agree with you that I think that they're going to trade up, in the draft, and they're going to take one of the top 4 quarterbacks, Williams, May, Daniels, and McCarthy. And I think that they're going to sign a bridge quarterback, because let's say, they signed Sam Darnold. Their plan is not to start Sam Darnold. Their idea or run of Nick Mullins, whoever, we talked about this last time.
Is it not their plan?
I think they want to have a guy in place, because, the draft is nothing is guaranteed unless they trade up for pick 3, right now, which they could very well do in the next few weeks. maybe that's their plan. But, if let's say they want to trade up for 5 or something on draft night. Well, what happens if the Cardinals trade back and all 4 quarterbacks go 1 through 4, and they lose out on their guy? They have to have someone who's capable of being a starter, whether it be Nick Mullen or Sam Darnold. So they have to have something in reserve, or if they would take, Bo Nix or Michael Penix or something later, if that's the route they decide to go or whatever. And so it's always just like a contingency plan. They're going to sign some quarterback if they let Kirk walk, probably just to round out the room. But their plan is to go get a guy and likely start him, week 1. But the fact that free agency comes before the draft means that you just have to, have a safety net in place, in case something happens. So when I think they talk about bridge quarterback or Sam Darnold, that's what it means, is just having some other guy in place in case, the nightmare worst case scenario happens in April.
They talk about wasting, the people talk about wasting the 2 years of a rookie quarterback. I lean on let's not waste 2 years of Justin Jefferson. So I'm really on board of signing no matter what, signing a quarterback. If after the draft I got Sam Darnold as a bridge quarterback or just Nick Mullins, and Bo Nix is taken in the 2nd round and that's our future, I got Kwesi on the shortest leash this year. Me personally, I'm not saying that the Vikings should, but and I'm a Kwesi supporter. I'm about 70. I'm still above 50% on him. I'm still up there.
Yeah, he's got to get a top 4 guy. That has to happen. I mean, especially if they let Kirk walk, they have to go get one of the top 4.
Yeah, if they let Kirk walk and he doesn't get the top 4 dude, and I like Bo Nix, and I like Penix, but I don't like his knee. So, and I hate left-handers. No, I'm kidding. It's really awkward to watch a left-handed quarterback to me. And then that just loses the value of Darisaw to me. So it's like a little weird. It's a little weird to have a left-handed quarterback and our left tackle be so damn good, right? So, I like that, and that means we got to pay O'Neal blindside money, right? So it's like crazy. But yeah, we talked a lot about this, and I appreciate you coming on the show, man. It's been fun. And this is how. And if anybody's still on board listening to this, and I'm gonna say what I told you in private, that I know you're a move on from Kirk guy, but you're not a dick about it.
Yeah, I appreciate
you, man. Yeah, where can we? And I know I didn't say it, but where can we find you, man?
Yeah, find me on Nicholas M. Miller on Twitter. It's the main place to find me, and Dave's referenced a lot of my hot takes I've had recently about the situation. So follow me and engage there, and I'd love to hear how you tell me I'm wrong. I love coming on here with you, Dave, because you have a little different perspective than I do, and so it helps me kind of clarify my own beliefs about what I think is going to happen and think about things a little bit differently. So it's been a great time. And then I'm also part of Climbing the Pocket. And so Climbing the Pocket on YouTube and on Twitter as well. And love to engage, anywhere further. And hopefully you'll have me back on in the future.
And you sharpen steel with steel. Skol Vikes.
Skol Vikes.